Hello, Sounders. Well, I ask you, as Eden Kane would have once said, what was all the worry for? What was all that fuss about? We knew we were good enough. Aren't those the thoughts that we have after Norwich City have been comprehensively beaten at their place on Friday? Humiliated, according to the 25,000 Norwich fans who turned up to see their diminishing, tiny hopes of a playoff place continue to flicker. Well, they didn't flicker. In fact, they diminished out of sight. Beaten out of sight, as the 1,800 faithful, Fratton faithful on their joyful day out would say, after they saw an away win at last. Those folks, and I've been amongst them occasionally, those folks have travelled all over the country. They've been everywhere and they've filled every space that's been offered to them pretty much across the country by the hosting clubs. They've been fantastic supporters, and it was good to see them rewarded at Carrow Road. We made 2 changes for the game. Oshish and Williams came in for Swanson and Sadie. The Williams Swanson contest, for that's what it is for them, I suppose, really, is a debatable one. But as we'll see, Williams did himself no harm. He had a decent game, and Sadie and Ortiz are simply not comparable. Ortiz, we'll talk about him at length during this game, but it was a hopeful sign, I think, that he was brought back into the team at Carrow Road. Improvement, in my opinion. That Luton win earlier in the day at Derby increased the urgency for points for Pompey, obviously. It meant, as far as I can remember at the time, we were 3 points ahead of Derby, but also now only 3 points ahead of Luton. This is at 2:30 in the afternoon. So it was obvious that if we're not going to be careful, it's going to get increasingly worrying, and it could conceivably go down to the last game of the season, this struggle to get out of the relegation dogfight. And we simply don't and didn't want that to be the case. And we had a somewhat nervy start. The first 10 minutes were largely Norwich's. They looked dangerous. They looked keener than I'd hoped they might be. I'd hoped they'd be on the beach. They didn't look like that early on, and their fans wouldn't have expected that, of course. And as I say, they did have a diminishingly small opportunity to still reach a playoff place. So at the time, they played with some skill and cohesion in the first 15 minutes, but then we scored, and it was essential goal, a brilliant goal from Pompey's point of view, really, with Ritchie crossing deep into the penalty area and Colby getting across his man and nodding it down into the ground and then bouncing up and over the despairing keeper's flailing left arm. Some might have said that he should have saved it. I don't know about that. It looked a pretty good snappy header from Colby. 1-0 up. And then we started to play with the confidence that we can. And Murphy, Josh Murphy, his crosses have been superb this season, and he had a spell when he produced a couple of great crosses. Indeed, two big chances really. He snapped them across, maybe overhit them a little bit in terms of. I mean, it's a skill because you've got to evade the defending players, and so the power has to be there in the cross. And we have worked very hard. It's noticeable how hard John Mousinho and his team have worked at making more of Murphy's crosses, getting more people into the box, in other words. So on this occasion, Orshish was making great efforts. Colby's always there or thereabouts, and Richie too was at times getting into a box to receive Murphy crosses. And that's a feature of our play that quite rightly they've worked on. But in 20 minutes, in spite of all that pressure and the fact that we really might have gone 2 up, there was an equaliser. It came from Sargent. Decent player, good forward really. And he stepped back off the line during a set-piece corner. And when the ball was cleared by Potts, he smashed it home. So 1-1, and a bit of pressure on us. I think at that point, Hayden, I'm reading from notes, Sounders, I'm doing my best. I think at that point, Hayden and Richie got booked. Hayden's going to get booked occasionally. It was a bit early, though, for my taste. It's his role to be a stopper, to put his foot in. It's something he does very well. But he got booked about half an hour in. And at around the same time, because these are significant moments in the game, Schmidt made a fine save from a point-blank header by the wide Norwich player whose name I can't remember. But it doesn't really matter. It could have... He perhaps should have scored, but Schmidt's good. He's a big frame and he makes use of it, and he's often hit by balls as he blocks. That happened at that moment. Murphy and Bishop, I've got down in my notes, were making great contributions and combinations, which is something that's growing for those two working together. And another good cross from Ogilvie almost gave Bishop another opening. Potts, I've got in my notes, was having a fine game. He had a fine game. And I've also got in my notes that Duffy, Sean Duffy, you'll remember him. He used to play for Brighton, Irish international, experienced player, but he's got a mistake in him. I'm not absolutely sure whether any of our goals were actually caused by him, but I just feel the man's got a mistake in him. Respect though I have for Sean Duffy. And then 39 minutes and we get the lead again. Murphy fed in by Hayden, and this time splendidly timed and placed cross into the box for Richie to score. Such an important goal. And then we have more pressure. Orshish had a shot blocked, and this is in time added on before half time. Orshish shot blocked. Hayden gets possession, tries a little fiddle round in the box and is brought down, undoubtedly brought down. A penalty is given. Now then, Colby, of course he was going to take the penalty, of course he was. But, he remembered the last one he'd taken. It wasn't a pleasure for him remembering that, but he would have remembered it. You can't help it. So the nerve of the man is just incredible. The strength of character he's got. And the keeper, I noticed just before Colby took his run up, the keeper jumped around to the right of his goal. In other words, the area that Colby best favours to score in. Just maybe aware of Colby's vulnerability after missing a previous penalty. But the man, as I say, has a magnificent character, and he blasted the ball. He connected properly with the ball, and he blasted it past the keeper to his left. It was wonderful to see, and so much respect for our centre forward. And we go in at 3-1, and Norwich get booed off. That's good. All of that's great. And you were aware that getting booed off, Norwich had to come out and firing after half time, but it didn't deter us. And early in the second half, 51 minutes indeed, we went 4-1. And this was a goal created by Oshish, feeding Murphy into the byline, and then his cross for Colby. It was a blocked cross, wasn't it? It was a blocked cross, came back to Colby, and with his left foot, his less favoured foot, he smacked it into the net. Great. Left, a right, and a header. At that point in time, 4-1 up, John Mousinho quite reasonably replaced Hayden, who we've already talked about having a yellow card, replaced him for Dizelle. After 56 minutes, Ashish had a shot parried around the post. I'm noting here that he's playing very well. And Pompey were playing flowing football at that point in the game. And then, as can happen with our side, but maybe with all sides, you get on top, you start playing flowing football, and you overdo it. I like Dizelle hugely, but it was him that gave the ball away on the halfway line. I don't think I feel as though I'm sort of what's the word? Telling on somebody, and I feel guilty about it. But it's a fact. It's just because I like the guy. I think he's a good player. But it's just a little bit of overconfidence in midfield, and there's that balance. You want arrogance, but not overconfidence, don't you? And then 71 minutes, Colby and Ashish fashion a pull back to Poole. It was Ashish's actual pull back, and a goal for Regan Poole. Fantastic. His first goal since September 2023, Sounders. 74 minutes, 5-2. Off comes Bishop. Quite rightly, being saved for the next game. And on comes Kusini Yengi. But then Pompey just lose a little bit of shape. And believe it or not, after 80 minutes, I'm saying they're under the cosh a little bit. Three up, but under the cosh. Schmidt had to make a big save after Ogilvy was found out of position a little bit and put under pressure. And so we made a few more changes. We had Oshish, Atkinson and Ritchie given a break 84 minutes in, Devlin, Pack and Swanson coming on for them, and we conceded another goal soon after that. And another near post corner leading, a nod on from the near post at a corner. Let's be exact about this, leading to a goal. And that's sort of something that is going to have to be stopped. 6 minutes of extra time, but it's all fine. It's all fine. We're in control now, and we make. I note 22 attempts on goal during that game compared to Norwich's 11. So there is no doubt in anyone's mind that was a deserved big win. Let's have a look at the players there. Nicholas Schmidt, as I've said, he makes a big barrier, and that creates point-blank saves. 3 goals is still too many to concede, but they weren't down to Schmidt. And we will, I'm certain, be looking at the training ground at a near post, runs into the near post, leading to nod-ons that concede goals. That's got to be stopped. Conor Ogilvy back to his left-back role. He did get caught out a little bit after the turnover in midfield that led to the goal. He did caught out upfield. It does happen occasionally. But CO, as I call him, never. But he never lets us down. That's the point about Ogilvy. Rob Atkinson, I felt it was a relief to get Rob Atkinson on the pitch after the Derby game when he looked drained and he looked physically something of a wreck, but he recovered with the help, I'm sure, of the backstage team. He recovered brilliantly for this game. And Rob Atkinson, there is no doubt, makes a difference. You could feel it in Regan Poole's game, his sense of security and the support and experience of Atkinson is invaluable. It leads me to ponder what's going to happen to him at the end of the season. Do you think he can be prized away from Bristol City? I can see a scenario when he certainly could be, and that's if they happen to go up through the playoffs. It's a sort of possibility, Sounders. But there are a few what-ifs in it, admittedly. We'll see about that. Regan Poole, as I've said, it was just great. A pleasure to see his joy at scoring, and even more pleasure to see his joy after the game, his real sort of enjoyment of the moment and greeting his fans in the stands who travelled all that way to see him. He's had a difficult journey this season, but he's getting a reward for it now, and boy, he's enjoying it. Isaac Hayden justified his inclusion. There is no doubt about that for me, with the sort of solid performance we signed him for. That was why we signed him, for that sort of performance. I think it's just, I feel it's very simply because he's got fitter since he's been with us. He had a long time when he was, I don't know, I don't think he was getting many minutes at Newcastle. He looks a lot better now. And he did well. And he was replaced simply because of that yellow card. I'm certain that we're going to see him on Monday. Freddie Potts, what can you say about Freddie Potts? He was majestic in midfield. That's what I'm going to say about him. Another great game. And he too, I like him because he looks at home at Pompey. I know he's not going to stay. I know we've got to forget about that. I understand totally his reasons for wanting to go home, which is what it is. But he is nonetheless, he's enjoying his time at Fratton Park, and he'll never forget it for the rest of his life. Josh Murphy had another wonderful game. He's vying, Sounders, with Jacob for title of best winger in the Murphy family, in my opinion. He didn't score against Norwich, but he laid on two, and he was a threat throughout. Adil Oshish, I've actually just read our manager saying that our French loanee Oshish had his best game for Pompey. It was his best performance that we've seen from him. He's classy. And some of Sounders will remember that I met him right at the very beginning when he first arrived with his dad. And he sat in the lounge there with us before he played. And he was full of hope that he was going to impose himself on the game playing at Fratton Park or playing for Pompey. And he up to now, he hadn't quite done that. He'd shown signs of it, but he hadn't quite done it. I would suggest to you that he did do it. He did play the game that he wanted to bring to Pompey against Norwich City. And I personally would like to see him being pursued for next season, just like I would Rob Atkinson. I personally would like it if that were the case over the summer. Some of you won't. I know some of you Sounders won't agree with that. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. I think he's the sort of skillful, unlocking forward that we need. Matt Ritchie, captain, of course, when Marner's not starting. His pleasure at scoring was shared by all of us, and his fine left foot cross from the right hand sideline made the first goal, the all-important first goal for Colby. He's an evergreen, Matt Ritchie. And then there's Colby himself. One right foot, one left foot, one header, 3 goals. Magnificent. Hard-working, wonderful display away from home. And a hat-trick ball to take home, Sounders. From the bench, Dazelle came on for Hayden fairly early in the second half, and I've already talked about the mistake he had, but it's still great. I mean, I think he should get many more starts, but it's great to have him coming off what's so much more of a strengthened bench since the beginning, since really the middle of the season, but it's now. Since January, it's a strengthened bench. Yengi replaced Colby for the last 20 minutes, and to be fair to him, he looked full of energy and enthusiasm, and that was reassuring to see, because he's had not all his own fault, but a desperately poor season from a Pompey point of view. As I say, not all his own fault, but he needs to put in every last ounce of energy. Excuse me. He's got in the last in the minutes that he gets on the pitch, and he did put himself about at Norwich. And then Swanson, Devlin and Pack fitted seamlessly in when they came on to shore up an understandably tiring team. So this was a huge result. Excuse me while I just take a sip of tea because my voice is going. It was a huge result, Sounders. And we knew it was the sort of result Pompey had in them. But the worry was, would fear and pressure and tension strangle the ability that there is so obviously in this team? We've seen it happen at Fratton Park. All credit to John Massigno and all the coaching staff and the senior players that they didn't let that happen. There is less tension in the crowd at an away game. Maybe that had something to do with it. Everyone could breathe. We must let them breathe against Watford, Sounders. Somehow or other, we've got to release our own tension in ways that enable them rather than strangle them. I'm not saying that we do that at Fratton Park, but we do get nervous ourselves. We do get tense ourselves, and I think that does communicate onto the pitch. Anyway, we're looking forward to Watford. We're almost there, Sounders. And then all the planning can begin for next season. I'm so looking forward to that. I know I'm being a little bit premature. Apologies to those pessimists listening. But Carrow Road was a fine performance. Take care, Sounders, and play up, Pompey.